We're down at the airport and we're getting to know the new man in charge. But while we're here, we've got the Minister. It's interesting though, because as it stands, you have some responsibilities, but also other departments have other parts of this. But this might change in the future. But the bits you can talk about, let's deal with the perception that this is an airport that can't keep its aircraft running on time, and it's ended up in that report, didn't it, only recently, third most delayed airport. I do take into account that we've got much smaller numbers, but you can't be pleased when you see that.
No, and we weren't pleased, and the airport director has arrived in the island a month ago. There were reviews of airline services waiting for him. We're talking about master planning in a couple of years' timescale, because basically we have challenges. We need to have airlines come in and out of our airport on time and reliably, safely, and those are the challenges we're addressing.
Are you disputing that actual report then? I'm sure you saw it. I mean, because I always expect it to. You'd have said, "Oh, it's quite wrong because they've headlined it."
The headline is slightly misleading because basically a cancellation. On the paper it's exactly black and white, but the reason the airline is late in the Alamein could be because we're the edge of Europe, the edge of the British Isles, so therefore problems everywhere else in Europe and the British Isles are magnified and amplified, and they affect us more. Also, we have smaller number of people coming in and out of our island and flights coming in and out of our island. So if we have special situations, statistically it's going to hit us more. But no, the reality is that wasn't good reading. The flip side of that, though, is air traffic controllers were staying here till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, most of those days in April, May and June. And we have an airport that's not quite resilient enough, given all the challenges that air services around the British Isles and Europe throw at us. And we want to make sure we become more resilient. And that's why working with our political member, airport director and all the staff behind them to master plan over the next couple of years and to make sure that council ministers, Treasury and then Tim Wood see that we're going to have to spend some money and do things differently in some ways so that we have the airport that we used to have and we want to have again for the future, because it's absolutely vital off-island travel for us, especially as we live on an island. You're
going to have to bid for money. Everyone has to bid for the money, and times are hard. But what do you need? I mean, nothing comes cheap here. I mean, we've had a great tour and £1 million for that machine and that sort of thing. What do you want to see? How much you need and what do you want to see happen to the airport?
Well, people will remember that a decade or so ago, 20 years ago, we were spending tens of millions. We're not talking about that sort of order. We're also not talking about tens of thousands. We've got to work out exactly when we need to do certain things to make sure that we have more resilience in the airport and the service and the welcome that we have at the airport and the safety is right and the regulators are happy. And so it's not going to be, it's millions, but not tens of millions.
I mean, fog's been the thing where you keep, just delays in weather. I presume it's mostly fog that's the problem here. Besides moving everything to Derby, which is everyone's solution. Can you get a better radar system in, or do we need something like that?
Well, I invited you in, and the airport director invited you in himself to talk about all those technical aspects with him, and you will do, I'm sure.
But it all comes down to money, that's what I'm trying to say.
It does. So we're not talking about new islands further out in the middle of the sea, which would be tens of millions of pounds, but I think it's important that you talk with him about new ways of doing it.
I will, but you are the money man. He wants something, he has to go to you then have to go to Tim.
Yeah, well, so the budgetary cycle in the Isle of Man starts in June and goes through to February. Tim Wood. We've already got a list of important things that the airport needs to send, which are on the department's discussions points with Treasury. I'm confident that some money will be heard in this budget round. And also, you've heard, for instance, around schools, we've got what's called a strategic infrastructure needs assessment going on, and the future of the airport is absolutely vital in terms of that strategic infrastructure needs. So what we've done is we've wrapped it all together into one document of all of the things and costed and with the timescale and the critical path, and that's where we are at the moment. And alongside that as well, we want to make sure we have the right timetables. So the review that's I mentioned before in interviews that's been around for nearly a year now is a review about how we go about regulating air services. I was going to come to this. We talk about open and closed skies. This is the sort of buzzwords we hear. We have open skies? Totally? I mean, at the moment we have an open skies regime.
But you want to change that, don't you?
And it might be that we need to move away from an open skies regime to more of a managed skies regime, especially on certain routes. So that's the sort of thing that we've had up-to-date analysis on, and that's the sort of thing that we'll be talking with the public and with you through you in the very short-term future.
Okay, I mean,
So
I hear bells ringing because obviously as soon as you start having a sort of you can have that slot and somebody else can't do that slot. We wouldn't have probably had EasyJet here, would we? Or potentially wouldn't have had, because that'd be competition on certain routes that you wouldn't have wanted, I suppose.
No, well, you're right. So open skies means that anybody who's a registered airline in the British Isles can operate anything. We live on an island, and we know that doesn't completely work for us because we end up at the end of a route and so on. So we're having a grown-up dialogue, including with you, but especially with the airlines, to make sure that the island has its needs served, given the realities of modern airline services and airlines in today's world.
I was going to say staffing in this, by the way, because haven't you been hit like everybody else with staffing issues?
Staffing at the airport and staffing in the airlines, So both of us are aware, because we travel from time to time, of all of the issues, and sometimes it's because a pilot gets COVID or other people in the crew. Sometimes it's because of issues down in Maastricht and all those other European airspaces that cause problems. Sometimes it's to do with something at this airport. So the reason we invited you all here today, I hope you appreciate that, is because we've shown you into places in the airport that I don't think you've been in before, like you were.
I did ask the baggage handling. I was expecting a no, because last time I was here, it was definitely a no. But we see the baggage handling, and that's where like a couple of million quid on those machines that do all the work.
And we want to be open. I know the new airport director wants to be open, and we basically want to have a grown-up dialogue and a grown-up discussion about all of these issues. Got Mr. Glover's the political member for ports, for the airport, for the harbours, and who we've been engaged with you.
I'll be talking about loads of subjects, but I keep saying you're the money man. At the end of the day, you have to get approval, don't you? So he comes to you, or people come to you with all these ideas. But I mean, can we make this airport run better? Is where we keep going over the same thing. Is it just the radar, or is it other aspects of more air traffic controllers or whatever?
It's all of those things. Yeah. And so and the point that the airport director's just made to us both in the briefing is that you can lose an air traffic controller in 3 months, but it takes much longer than 3 months to get one back. Mm-hmm. So we need, the island is a great place to live, and it's a great place to live for air traffic controllers. We can also grow our own, but that takes longer than bringing people over. People will have heard that Doncaster Airport has closed down because it's not large enough and there are not enough passengers. They have more passengers than we've had in recent years. It's always difficult running things on Isle of Man scale, but we need a good airport and we need good air services.
And we all remember when we had lots of flights to a lot of places and things ran pretty well, okie dokie. Yeah. It's not that experience at the moment, is it? It's still like I'm going away soon. I booked an extra night each side in the UK just to take the factor out of the whole thing.
And it affects us in our family. I have privilege to have children that now travel by themselves, and it's the sort of thing that they make up their life decisions on and their career decisions on, is about airport links, just like I did when I was their age. It affects you less as you get older because you accept things.
But we want people to move here, and we want this sort of infrastructure which people take for just normality that they can get from A to B. Mm-hmm. Do you see that?
It's absolutely vital. The Chief Minister thinks it's vital. I think Tim Wood thinks it's vital. And now where we are is we're writing down, this needs doing, this needs doing, this needs doing. This is our budget cost. This is when it needs to be done by, and that's where we are now.
So you're
not
going
just talking about visions and strategies and so on. We're talking about several millions over the next couple of years to actually
even with the balancing of the books. Do you think you can get it?
This is absolutely vital. This is not a marginal project. Having a functioning airport is absolutely necessary for one of the key things that's difficult about living on an island, like it is having a good ferry service and reliable ferry terminals.
To finish with, because you're the guy on the outside who's now on the inside, how was it when you first saw how this was going?
I wanted this job. I've got to. I think I've got a pretty good understanding now, talking to Mr. Glover about the airport and the air services. The director's a breath of fresh air. He's enthusiastic. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's talented. I think I'm getting good vibes from our discussions with Treasury. I do hope that by the time we get to the budget in February, Tim will be on side, and this has got the proper priority that it needs to have, because an island is nothing without a good set of air services coming in out of a well-functioning airport. I'm not talking about having lots of shops here so you can spend loads of money, but wouldn't it be great if it's slightly more welcoming, and most importantly that we have reliable and safe air services operating to the places we want to go to reliably.